Hey guys, Avar here. In this video, I'm going to absolutely destroy enemy teams with the dumbest American jet at rank 6, the F3H. I have an 8 and a 9 kill game, as well as some gameplay that shows off the more average experience, but to describe this plane briefly, it's a flying train wreck. You lose all your speed in a single turn, and this is combined with an airframe the size of a barn, which means that even though you're very fast for 9.0, the moment you get the slightest up tier and get run down by supersonics, you're going to get bullied. However, if you get okay matchmaking, and there's a large enough skill gap between you and your opponents, you can get some hilarious games, as I will be showing you today. But that's enough discussion about the vehicle, because it's easier to show you how to fly this thing by watching how the matches play out. We're going to start with the highest skill match first, but trust me, this isn't even the best one I have to show you today. It's more about how this plane performs in an optimal situation if you're able to play it right, which means exercising correct target priority and staying fast so you have to take 0 dogfights. This plane is faster than nearly every other plane at its BR or lower by a considerable margin, so if you get down tiered like I am right now, no one is taking you into the fight unless you let them. Now at the start of the match, I locked up a high altitude Saab, and I'm considering shooting a Sparrow. However, most people are expecting a Sparrow to come out of the F3H, and if they dodge within the first couple seconds, the missile is almost guaranteed to whiff. So if you didn't know this about the Sparrows, they fly straight for 2 seconds on the AIM-7C, which means that if they invade inside that 2-second window, the missile is almost guaranteed to miss. So I let him go scot-free, but I will be back for him later. And an enemy Javelin comes in. And same deal, this time when he showed up, he was inside the minimum range of the Sparrow by the time I would have launched it, and he dodged my guns. So I look around, and I accidentally climbed right into the enemy team, and I have a SEAL-13B approaching. So I'm going to line up the head-on, I'm going to duck his rounds, I shoot a bit, and I have a critical hit on him, and it's a wing crit. So that will considerably affect the performance of him, and he is the most dangerous enemy plane in the lobby. So I see a Javelin above me, I'm going to continue on towards him, I look behind me to make sure there's no missile slingers, and I've flown the Javelin before, and is uniquely terrible at dodging missiles. We're at high altitude, where the missile is faster and his pull is even worse than usual, so I checked my 6 and then I fired an AIM-9B at him, and once I fired the AIM-9B at him at dead 6 from this altitude, he was done. There was nothing he was going to do about it. So he eats the missile for breakfast, just like the scones I had this morning, and I find a Super Mystere that climbed in late. And he does get AIM-9B, so I don't want him to get my 6, because then the same thing could happen to me. So I take the head-on with him, I shoot, I whiff, and then I make sure that he doesn't turn around for me, and then I will continue on for the G91. The F3H is kind of like the Super Mystere, same BR, bad energy retention, but unfortunately for him, he is French, which means I possess the power in this engagement due to my larger American gravitational pull. So I find the G91, who is the last target that will be fighting outside the furball, and he is clearly distracted. He's shooting a missile, so all I have to do is come in, take his tail off, and then the Javelin is exposing himself, and as the fun police, I am here to prevent him from docking himself, so I hand him a free ticket back to the hangar, and he will be protecting his anonymity as he slams into the ground. So I take a pass at the Meteor and I miss, and then I exit the brief furball, because this is the F3H. You pretend you are an F-104 for 90% of the time, and you fly in straight lines. And there's a CL-13B above me. I want to pitch into him, but I can't, because the second one is coming back for revenge. So I'm going to take the head-on with him, but this time it's going to be me that doesn't duck fast enough, and I take a little bit of damage. And it's light damage because it's 50 cals, so definitely unfair, but he's going to have to cope about it because there's no other usable advantage that the F3H possesses over the CL-13B besides the guns. So after I take the head-on, I'm going to climb away. I'm going to create separation, and I'm going to make it clear that they will not catch me if I don't want them to. Naturally, they would rather fight the A4E next to them rather than engage in a wild goose chase, so they both turn around just as planned. And this is where they forget about the concept of object permanence. I honestly don't understand this. You were just chasing a guy, you give him space to come back, and then you forget that he exists, as if he can't return and blow your tail off. So I'm going to come back after the CL-13. He goes vertical. So like I said, he just is not checking that I just passed him, and he goes straight up, take his tail off, critical hit, and he's going to be going down. So the Saab shows up. He's named Sir Raisin. He's not very happy about it. He wants to clobber me with a missile. And I'm going to say no, and I barely squeeze out of the way before I get dried. And this is where this guy is going to make a textbook mistake. So the Saab 105, it only has 2 missiles, and he's going to launch the second one at a guy who's clearly paying attention and clearly has enough energy to dodge the missile. So I'm going to get out of the way with a comfortable amount of space, and I'm going to continue on a straight line towards the CL-13 who just finished up with my friendly saber. And I would never be so crass as to shoot him, as you can clearly see, because there weren't any tracers from my guns, but instead I gently reminded his pilot to take his sleeping pills, which he obliges by becoming unconscious and graciously rewarding me with a frag. Now that's ace, and I check the scoreboard, and we're still not clearly winning, so American teams are what they are. So as usual, I survey the situation, and I make sure I'm not going to get jumped. You will see me climbing away a lot in this plane with these very extended vertical loops. This is so I can turn around while conserving my energy and get into people's blind spots, as a lot of people check their 6 o'clock from time to time, but they have a hard time looking straight up while they're occupied. So going vertical there was about more than asserting my dominance. It isolated me from the Venom, it put me in a favorable position on the Saab, and allowed me to get a missile off on the Meteor. So he was flying straight after my teammate, but then the F9F attacked me, it attacked him, it made him dodge, so I have to go in for guns. So I managed to blow his wing off, severe damage. I American freedomize him, I destabilize his economy, his country goes into a flat spin, and he is dead. So that is kill number 6. And now I will go after the Saab that attacked me. Now he's busy with my friendly F86A, and so he got into a dogfight, and he's traveling very slowly. Now you'll note that one thing I can do is I split my gun pairs. I set it to fire only from one pair, and that's going to save ammo since I only have 29 rounds per gun left, which goes pretty fast. So now I'm chasing the Saab. I line up with the missile, and then I'm going to fire it. Now I'm going to lead the missile so that it doesn't have to turn much, because remember, it's going to fly in a straight line for 2 seconds, and then it has to turn the minimum amount after it starts maneuvering, so that's just perfect. So I hit the Saab as he was going slow, and he's going to go down. Now, the 828 and the Venom both got shut down in embarrassing ways, and it took a while for me to reach the enemy airfield, so I decided to cut all that out. I saw that the enemy took off earlier, but he wasn't spotted, so I popped a blind hunt, and there he is, an R2Y2. I dissed that thing in my previous video, and for good reason. It's slow, it turns well, and has good guns, and that's just not enough at BR 8.0 these days. Just ask Vampire players, and you'll see what I mean. My current plan is that I'm going to wait for him to turn around and then hit him with a missile, but he never turns around, so he's going to fly straight underneath me. I'm going to dodge the roll-ins briefly because I do not want to get smacked, and so he's going to fail to create separation, and then he's going to pitch straight up underneath me and make the kill even easier. So I'm going to hit him with one gun pair, and he's going to go down. So was there anything that he could have done in that situation? No. No, there really wasn't. However, he definitely didn't make things any easier for himself. If I were him, I would have skirted the hills, tried to collect enough separation to force the enemy F3H to come down, and maybe take a head-on, but the R2Y2 pilot didn't see things that way. So that's going to leave me with the enemy Vautour coming into RTB. I'm not scared of him at all, but I am scared of him crashing himself on purpose, like what happened in the last 2 8-kill games where I had the chance to get 9. Fortunately for me, he's more honorable than that, or maybe he doesn't see me coming until the last moment. I turn on both gun pairs to make sure that if I hit him, he dies, and he just kind of flies straight. He dips the nose at the last second, and then he turns broadside to me to give me the broadest shot possible. So, pilot escorted to the hangar, thank you for the 9th kill. But that game was not even close to the best game I had in this thing, because in the next one, the enemy tries much harder to kill me, and they almost succeed. Now, you could call this one a 9-kill game, depending on how you interpret events, but that's not how the game credited it to me, and to say anything else would be spoilers. I'm climbing straight in, as I am in a full down tier, and as usual I have evaluated what my team is doing before the enemy team shows up, because I want to play as aggressively as possible. And how hard I can attack is partially determined by how much support I will receive from my teammates. Which at this BR, you usually won't receive very much, as your team will be filled with bombing A4Es and F84Fs, so often you're prepared to go it on your own. So, I see an enemy dot, I'm looking at him with my radar, and I'm suspecting that it's an enemy TU4. I really want to get him with a funny Sparrow kill, I really do, but at the same time, I know that the enemy team is about to be inbound from the airfield on my left. They will probably have MiG-15s, maybe MiG-17s, and if I turn and give my 6 to the enemy horde, it's going to take forever to get them off, because this thing can't dogfight to save its life. It's much better to assume an offensive posture and try to get early game fighter kills rather than chase the TU4 right now. So in comes a group of enemy fighters, just as predicted. I go towards the closest MiG-15, I take the head on, and I'm going to line up with him. Now he's going to be slightly offset at my gun sight, he's going to be rising upwards, and I'm going to shoot a little bit above him. And he's going to get devastated, severe damage. So these 20 mils don't play around. The issue is that the plane they're attached to is so massive that you will often get chunked in return, which is what you don't want to happen. But the MiG-15 BIS was one of the biggest threats, and he is out of the picture. So I will continue on in a straight line. I'm going to ignore the Meteor, and I'm going to go after the R2Y2 that's not paying attention to me. So all I have to do is shoot a little bit, severe damage, aircraft destroyed. So I'm going over 1100. The Meteor barely breaks 1000 in a straight line, and the MiG-15 also struggles to accelerate at these speeds. So even though I'm in the middle of a cluster of enemies, I'm temporarily safe. The MiG-15 wisely broke off, he is above me, and I'm looking up to see whether I can get a missile launch in if he's distracted. He is pre-turning though, he's preventing the launch, and if I chase him, I will expose myself to the group of 5 guys in front of me, which is not the action that I want to take. So I think about locking up the IL-28, I forget that idea, and I go for the Scimitar instead. Now in hindsight, there was a MiG-15 I could have missiled, which would have made my life a whole lot easier, but we all make mistakes. So I'm going to go after the Scimitar, take the head on with him, and I'm going to whiff it. So I'm going to continue on towards the TU4, and I'm going to lock him up for the Sparrow shot. So turn around a little bit, Now what I do on this plane, when I'm turning, I often tap the negative pitch key to slow down the speed bleed, and then I hear a missile whiz by, and I hear the missile evasion text, or rather I see a missile explode right next to me, so I fire the Sparrow, and I turn around and I see a G91R4. Now he's definitely in missile range, and he will kill me if I get distracted, so I have to dodge the missile, and in the meantime the TU4 dies to the AIM-7C, he collects it, and we get the rear AIM-7C W. So with 2 enemies pressuring me, I'm going to have to dive off, I'm going to have to reset, and I'm going to have to slowly turn around once they get distracted by the friendly F3H. So as long as I keep this plane going above 1,000, I'm doing alright, but the moment I drop below it, and you'll see that in a second here, so I can pull a lot of Gs, but I'm also bleeding a lot of speed. I went from 1,000 to below 800 in just a single turn. So I get a crit on the MiG-15, fortunately. He fired a rocket at me, which I also dodged, and I'm going to continue on a straight line. I'm not going to stick around to dogfight the MiG-15. I'm going to go after the G91, because it's ultimately more advantageous for me to keep my speed rather than try to finish off that enemy, even if that could work out badly for me in the long run. So I was thinking about a missile, but he pulled vertical. He noticed me at the last second, but he made it easy for me to hit him, and I smack him. So after I hit the G91, I'm going to continue for the MiG-15 that was stalling itself out. Can't get a missile shot, so I'm just going to shoot him instead. I'm going to get a tail crit or something, and he's going to continue on down towards the ground. So he's now severely emotionally damaged, and I will continue on. Now the MiG-15 BIS comes back after I crit him, so I don't know exactly what I hit, but he's still able to continue on, and still I am able to get away from him, and I will continue on towards this cluster of enemies in front of me. There's paid actors in every game. Your job is to find them and make sure that you're not one of them. He launches a rocket. He's got the time fuse going on, but I'm out of range, fortunately, and I should be out of range of his gun, so I'm going to continue on towards the MD. So there's plenty of work to do. Fire a missile at the MD-452. Now, we are at high altitude, so that missile, which would be out of range on a thicker air map, something like Spain on the deck, that missile is in range, and I get a crit on him, which unfortunately does absolutely nothing. So it's going to proxy, and I got a tail crit or something, but it didn't do much. So that's fine by me. I know the MiG-15 is damaged and he wants to RTB, and the other enemies are giving me space, so that leaves me room to go vertical once again, which is one of the F3H's strengths, at least in a down tier. You have pretty good climb rate for a 9.0, and by doing this long loop, I'm able to preserve my energy, and I'm able to get the French fry that I just put on the pan. He doesn't want to be cooked, but I'm closing it above him. He doesn't have any speed left, and a quick tap of the 20 mils is going to send him back into the tray, giving me my 6th kill. So now I have a choice to make. I could have gone after the MiG-15 BIS, and I could have tried to strafe him, as you can pull off a strafe on this map. The issue is that I have limited fuel left. Now don't worry, that stutter wasn't your computer, it was just me tabbing out briefly. I have a Meteor Squad to deal with, as well as a Scimitar. The Scimitar is just me, but better. It has more weight of firepower, it has the 30mm DEFAs, it has 4 of them, and it has the same missile kit, and it also has faster acceleration at most speeds. So it's not really something that I want to deal with. Take a head-on with the Meteor, I just get a hit, so that's unfortunate, but it is going to send him back towards the base. And I'm going to continue on towards the Scimitar. They just managed to take out some of my friends. I'm going to dip the head-on, we both duck it, and he's going to continue on towards his base. So we pass each other in the head-on. He looks like he's going RTB, as well as the Meteor that I just hit. And I have a friendly Saber coming in, who I did not expect much from in this match, but he ended up being the MVP. So meanwhile, I can use my speed versus the Meteor. I can go vertical over his nose, and in this scenario, I did something which I don't do normally, which is I went almost straight up. So if I did a conventional spiral energy trap, I would spend so much energy just doing the spiral that I might not have enough to solidly come back down on top of him. Whereas if I used my engine power to grab altitude right away, then I wait until the last moment to turn in, then I could maybe make something happen. So I was thinking about turning into him, but I could see at that earlier moment that it just wasn't going to happen. So I went straight back up, and then he is forced to leave. He knows he doesn't have enough energy, and then I'm going to send an AIM-9B at him. Now at these high altitudes, it has a better chance of hitting him, but he manages to pull a barrel roll, he evades the missile, so he has a little bit of experience, he's a little bit cognizant, and he's able to pay attention to me. So I'm going to just have to chase him down with guns. So I'm going to close the range on him, and he's going to pull left, and notice how he dodges. He pulls left, and then he pulls up at the last second. He reverses his turn back. He's clearly anticipating the reversal. So I'm going to be paying attention to how that works. I'm going to go after the IL-28 briefly, shoot at him a little bit, miss, and at this point I've switched to one gun pair as I'm running low on ammunition. So the Saber comes in, he distracts the Meteor, he's going to go after the IL-28, and I'm going to loop back down after the Meteor. And I was paying attention to how he dodged the last time, so I'm again solidly settled on a 6, going after him, and now he's going to do the same thing. He's going to break to the left once I get within range, so breaks right, then breaks back to the left, and at the last second he's going to pull up, and I was anticipating that, so he pulls up in front of my guns, and I hit him. So if you want to survive against a more experienced pilot, you have to be unpredictable. If you went up on your break turn last time, maybe try a split S, vary the game, try to get into his head. The last thing you want to be is predictable, or you're going to get disassembled like a Lego set. So the Saber killed that IL-28 in the background, and the enemy MiG-15 BIS that I crit came back in. Now at this point, I'm really wishing that my shells killed him in the head-on, as I am down to only 2 minutes of fuel. And that is not the real time I have left, as whenever you kick on the afterburner, this thing consumes the fuel even faster. I am basically at the lightest that the F3H can ever be. It is the lowest fuel load I can have without being completely out, and it's still not enough to keep up with a MiG-15 BIS that is loaded down with rockets. If that doesn't tell you about this plane's turn performance, I don't know what will. So since I would lose the turn fight if I kept it up, I broke towards the IL-28, and I'm going to take him out in the head-on, so I'm hoping I can kill him, and then third party the MiG-15 as he's busy with the Saber. I don't have enough fuel left to make the base. I have to kill the guy here somehow, but he's paying attention to me, and he's not giving me his 6 to fire an AIM-9B. He's going to give me a single shot opportunity as I come up towards him. He's going fairly slowly, so this is the best chance that I'm going to have, and I'm forced to go at only 100% most of the time, turn on the afterburner to get a little bit of speed coming up after him, and then I'm going to whiff the shot. So from here, all he has to do is keep looping. I don't have the fuel to extend, I don't have the fuel to make the base anymore, and I'm going to try cutting into his turn. So I'm going to use lead pursuit, I'm going to point my plane at where he will be in the future, and I'm going to go underneath him to pick up a little bit of speed, but it is simply not enough. Even if I was using my afterburner, let's say I had a minute of fuel left, even if I was using my afterburner, then I would not be able to keep up with him. So I'm going to reverse my turn, because I can fit inside his turning circle from how slow I'm going. I'm absolutely falling out of the sky at this point, and I'm still not able to keep up with him. So this is why I do not take turn fights in the F3H unless I am absolutely forced to by enemy supersonics that turn a little bit worse. But when it comes to these early Korean War era jets, they will rinse you in a dogfight 11 times out of 10. So at this point, I'm almost out of gas, I am out of gas, and I'm forced to run away. I'm hoping that the MiG-15 BIS is going to go after the Saber, and then maybe I can come back and fire the world's most heroic AIM-9B of all time, but that's just not going to happen. The F-86A is going to come back towards me, and I'm going to say in the chat, hey, I'm out of fuel, I have an AIM-9B left, you're going to have to run away from me. So at this point, I'm forced to turn back in. There's nothing I can do. I have to Hail Mary it, hope that the MiG-15 BIS gives me a 6 while he's looping. Maybe I can hit him with one while he's going super slow, but that's just not going to happen. So he's going to go towards the F-86A. I'm floating in the sky at this point. The MiG-15 notices that I'm coming back. He's going to go straight vertical above me, and there's no way I can pull back in. Even though I'm popping the flaps with the desperation move, there's nothing that I can do about it. So he's going to come back down on top of me. I'm just a couple of feet above the houses, and he misses every single shot. And then I crash. I swear it wasn't on purpose. It was accidental, just like it was accidental that the MiG-15 BIS crashed himself. So he hits the ground as well, and the Saber is the last man standing. Absolute cinema. And now it's time to look at some footage that isn't just me taking advantage of a full down tier. When you get up tiered in this thing, which is about half your games, you go from maybe top dog to being at the bottom of the barrel. This plane does not handle up tiers well, and that is because speed is your only usable advantage. You are fast, therefore people don't want to chase you. They go after easier targets, you come back, you kill them. That is the F3H down tier gameplay loop. Whereas in an up tier, your enemies are very often literally you but better. The MiG-21S is faster and it has better radar missiles at 9.7. The only thing you can do is cope about it and play like a rat, because if you're forced into a dogfight, it's over. Not because you can't beat supersonics, you can if you play it right and they play it wrong, which I will show you in a second, but because you're so slow and so huge that missing you is genuinely impossible. And since ARB is not a 1v1, you're essentially dead the moment you get pressured by a faster plane. But that's not always the case, so it's time to look at a rare jet duel that didn't get interrupted. So here he is. It's a Q5 that recognized me from when I was on his team in the previous match, and he wants to fight me. I don't want to fight him, but as he is faster than me, I am forced to take it. So, I'm going to start doing a turn, dodge low, and roll around until he starts shooting, and then I'm going to attempt to pull over his nose, which should send him out in front of me as he came in faster. However, he doesn't overshoot, which tells me he's been air braking. So I'm going to briefly stay in the vertical to see if he overbraked and stalled himself out, but he didn't. He's keeping just enough energy to maintain control while still being behind me, and if this fight goes to a rate fight, I lose. I need to keep pulling back underneath him and over his nose, keeping this fight about the turn radius instead of the turn rate by continually reversing my turn, and this is a tricky thing to do because I have to reverse back in front of him while staying out of his guns. Fortunately, this plane's wing is a flying air brake, and I don't need to pull out my air brake. I could just throttle down a little bit, drop the afterburner, and once I stay out of his nose on that pass, it's over. He's forced to duck out. Because luckily the Q5 is a bit of a low-speed pig with below-average roll rate, so I could stay out of his guns long enough to force him to overshoot, at which point the fight was over as he was no longer quick enough to run away. He's going to plow a field, and I will hit him with the nice dogfight because it was indeed genuinely enjoyable. So I will survive this, and then we will take a look at a later point where I'm using the Sparrows. And now it's time to see one of the major handicaps of the Sparrow, which is the range. There's a MiG-21S above me. He's going about Mach, he's much faster than me, and he's going over my head. But I can get an AIM-7C off inside 1.7 kilometers, and if this was a later model Sparrow, such as the AIM-7E, it would have the kinetic energy to make that kind of shot. However, I switch over to the missile view to watch it, and it never even gets close. He does a barrel roll smartly to drain its energy, but I'm sure that even had he gone straight, the Sparrow never would have hit him. I then got slammed by the MiG-17 due to this plane being the size of a house, and there wasn't a whole lot that I could have done about it. I tried to go in front of him, and he hits me anyway. Now, the shots didn't look like they actually hit me, but it is what it is. Now, for the final match of today, we have another 9.7 game, which I actually played just before the one that I showed you. When it comes to these matches, I climb off to the side at the start. I'm not in the down tier, I'm not the main character, and my main goal is to pick off stragglers so I can at least get a few kills per game. That means ignoring the big rush at the start, because if you get focused down by multiple faster opponents, you can kiss yourself goodnight. Instead, I'm maintaining my altitude, and I'm coming in once everyone is already distracted. So who do I want to kill? Well, there's a couple of guys off to my right, but they're going pretty fast right now, and I'm not sure that I'll be able to catch them in a good amount of time. Meanwhile, there's a big cluster of slow planes on the deck that have no idea that I'm in the area, and one of them is a MiG-21. So like I've said before, the MiG-21S is simply you but better, so I want this guy out of the match. He's slow, and he's floating in the sky, so I'm going to try to lock him up with a missile because I know he's going too slow to dodge it. But my tone breaks off as he goes sideways to me, the missile can't hold its lock, so I'm simply going to go in and shoot him with guns. So come in, looks like he might have a little bit of engine damage already, get the severe damage and make sure that he's sent to the match. So then I look up and I see a G91 that, because I came in from above, he has no idea that I'm here. So I'm going to close the range and I'm going to wait until I have a dead 6 shot that the missile will have to pull the least amount. So I shoot the missile at him as he's distracted by the Milan, and down he goes. But unfortunately, I'm going to get put under some pressure. The MiG-19 noticed that I'm there, and he knows that I'm a free kill. And due to being the Russian MiG-19 PT, he also had missiles. It only gets 2 of them, but the R3S is a Russian AIM-9B clone that will hit you if you fly straight, so I had to dodge the missile, and now I will have to defend myself. I'm going to try the same play that I'm going to try on the Q5 in the next match. So I'm going to roll around his nose, abuse his bad roll rate, and I'm going to try to get behind him. Now, if he sticks the fight, he's dead. Not necessarily to me, but he's dead to my teammates around him. And he knows this, so he's going to run away in a straight line. And because the MiG-19 is considerably faster than me, it has more energy, it could essentially, if I was alone, go into a spiral climb, and he could stall me out all day long, and I would be dead. But fortunately, I do have teammates around me, and so he runs off, and I'll skip ahead to another use of the Sparrow in which it shows just how kind of mediocre that it actually is. This guy is flying in a straight line, he's making himself a perfect target, and watch what the missile does. I locked the guy up, I led the missile in front of him, and I fired around 3.5 kilometers, which would be an easy kill for something like an AIM-7E. However, the AIM-7C flies straight for 2 seconds, and in that time the bombers moved so much that the missile simply didn't pull in despite the guy flying straight, and not deploying any chaff. But I did have a Sidewinder. The guy was crit, he was flying straight, and I get a very satisfying explosion. And now the last kill will be a Sea Vixen. I've been following him around for a hot second, and I know he's going for the bases because I saw that he had bombing score. So I don't want to fire the missile right now because he might be paying attention and simply dodge it. So I will wait for him to go on his bombing run, and then I'm going to hit him with a Sidewinder because these people, when they go for bases, when they go on the bombing run, they're paying attention to the base in front of them, and they're not looking behind them, just like that. Boop. So that will be all for today. If you liked what you saw, hit me with a comment because I love to see it. I've linked my Discord in the description if you'd like to join my small community. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video, which will be coming later this week.